Linda parked her small car in the crowded parking lot outside the military academy. The sun was shining brightly, and a soft breeze moved through the trees lining the walkway to the main hall. Today was a big day. Her son Alex was graduating. She had been looking forward to this moment for months, and now that it was finally here, her heart was pounding with excitement and a little nervousness. She had imagined this day so many times in her mind, but seeing it in real life felt very different. She stepped out of her car, smoothing the folds of her simple dress. She wanted to look presentable but not too flashy. This was a military graduation after all. Families of other graduates were already gathering, many dressed in smart suits or uniforms, their faces full of pride and joy. Linda took a deep breath, clutching her purse tightly, and began walking toward the crowd. She could hear the distant sound of a marching band practicing, and the rhythmic tap of soldiers' boots echoed faintly in the distance. The main lawn was buzzing with energy. Parents, siblings, and friends filled the seats, chatting excitedly while trying to spot their graduates. Some were waving flags, others held cameras, ready to capture every moment. Linda felt a mix of emotions: pride for her son, nervousness about being in such a large crowd, and a strange feeling of being a little out of place. She had spent most of her life focused on raising Alex, and though she had always supported him, she had never been part of this kind of formal military event before. She finally found a spot near the middle of the audience. From here, she could see the stage clearly, where rows of cadets in crisp uniforms were lined up, standing at attention. The graduates looked impressive, their polished shoes shining under the sun and their faces serious yet proud. Linda's chest swelled with pride as she thought of Alex among them. She remembered how he had struggled during training, how many times he had doubted himself, and yet here he was about to graduate. She felt tears welling up in her eyes but quickly wiped them away, not wanting to draw attention to herself. While she waited for the ceremony to begin, Linda scanned the crowd. Some parents were chatting nervously with friends, others were quietly fidgeting in their seats. She noticed how organized everything was. Soldiers were moving with precision, arranging chairs, and directing families. There was a sense of discipline in the air, and Linda admired how smoothly the event was coming together. She felt a little awe at being part of such a well-coordinated ceremony. Her mind wandered briefly to her own past. She had never served in the military herself, but she had always respected it. Her life had been full of challenges, raising Alex mostly on her own after his father left. She had worked multiple jobs, stayed up late helping with homework, and made sure he never felt unsupported. Today was the reward for all her sacrifices, the chance to see her son shine. Suddenly, the sound of a trumpet signaled the start of the ceremony. Everyone stood, and a hush fell over the crowd. The cadets began marching in perfect formation, their movements synchronized, their steps echoing on the pavement. Linda's eyes widened as she saw Alex in the line. He looked taller, more confident, and his uniform fit perfectly. He held his head high, and Linda felt an overwhelming surge of pride. She clapped enthusiastically, cheering for him as best as she could without standing out too much. As the cadets reached the stage, Linda noticed a mix of emotions on the faces of the families around her. Pride, excitement, relief, and a touch of nervousness. She realized that everyone here shared her feelings, that this moment was special not just for the graduates, but for the parents who had supported them through every challenge. She felt connected to this crowd, even though she didn't know most of the people. While she focused on Alex, Linda barely noticed a few people glancing her way. She was completely absorbed in the ceremony, in her son's accomplishment, and in the joy of the moment. She didn't expect anything unusual to happen. All she wanted was to enjoy this day, to see her son walk across the stage, receive his diploma, and celebrate the success he had worked so hard for. As the music played and the cadets took their positions, Linda sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. Her heart beat faster with anticipation. She knew this was just the beginning of a long, memorable day. Little did she know, something completely unexpected was about to happen. Something that would make this day unforgettable for reasons she could never have imagined. As the graduation ceremony continued, Linda's focus remained entirely on her son. She clapped enthusiastically every time Alex performed a drill or stood at attention, her eyes shining with pride. Around her, the crowd cheered and waved, capturing moments on cameras and phones. The air was filled with excitement, laughter, and the rhythmic echo of marching cadets. Linda felt completely absorbed in the moment, unaware that something unusual was about to happen. Captain Harris, a tall and sharp-eyed officer, was standing at the side of the stage, observing the ceremony. He had seen hundreds of graduations before, but today something caught his attention. Most people's eyes were fixed on the graduates, but Harris's gaze shifted slightly, scanning the crowd of families. That's when he noticed her. Linda, sitting quietly, clapping for her son. There was something different about her, something that made him stop and look closer. At first, it was subtle. He noticed the tattoo peeking out from the sleeve of her dress. It was unusual, a large, detailed design on her upper arm, just partially visible, yet enough to grab his attention. It wasn't the kind of tattoo most civilians had. It was complex, almost like a badge of honor. Harris's brow furrowed as he studied it. He had seen many tattoos in his time, but this one felt familiar, almost like a memory nudging at the back of his mind. Linda, completely unaware of the attention she was drawing, continued cheering for Alex. She adjusted her camera, trying to get the perfect shot as he marched across the stage. She had no idea that the tattoo, something she had gotten years ago during a very different time in her life, was now the reason someone important had noticed her. To everyone else, she was just another proud mother. But to Harris, this tattoo carried a story he couldn't ignore. Harris's mind began to race. He remembered a decorated female soldier he had known years ago, a woman known for her bravery in some of the most dangerous missions. She had left the military suddenly, and rumors had swirled about why she had disappeared from active duty. But the tattoo, Harris's eyes narrowed as he recognized the symbols and patterns, matched the ones the soldier had had. Could it really be her? Could this woman sitting quietly in the crowd, focused only on her son, be the same courageous soldier he had once respected so deeply? The captain's reaction was immediate but controlled. He straightened his posture and focused on keeping his composure, but inside, his curiosity and surprise were growing. He had to know. He shifted slightly, trying to get a better look at the tattoo without drawing attention to himself. The sun glinted off the metal insignia on his uniform as he glanced again, confirming what he feared. There was no mistake. This woman had served, and she had done so with distinction. Meanwhile, Linda continued to cheer, laughing softly when Alex saluted the crowd. She had no idea that someone was now watching her with an intensity that went far beyond casual observation. The crowd around her remained oblivious, chatting and waving flags, taking photos, and celebrating. For them, the ceremony was all about their own children, their own families. For Harris, it had suddenly become about uncovering a piece of the past. He quietly signaled one of his aides to stay nearby and be ready to assist. He didn't want to make a scene during the ceremony, but after it ended, he knew he had to approach her. His curiosity was no longer just professional. It was personal. The memories of missions, late nights, and unspoken sacrifices flashed through his mind, and the realization hit him. This woman had been a hero in ways few people could understand. And now, sitting there as a proud mother, she looked almost ordinary, but Harris knew better. As the ceremony moved on, Harris's thoughts remained fixed on Linda. He watched her adjust her bag, check her camera, and clap for Alex with genuine warmth. There was something striking about her calmness, her modesty, and the quiet pride she radiated. It was the same courage he had admired years ago, now softened by the love of a mother for her son. The contrast was fascinating. A woman who had faced unimaginable challenges, now completely focused on her child's success rather than her own accomplishments. Linda, on her part, remained blissfully unaware of the stir she had caused. She noticed glances from nearby people but assumed they were looking at the graduates or trying to get a better view. She didn't suspect that anyone in authority was suddenly studying her with intense curiosity, connecting her to a past she had kept hidden for years. All she knew was that Alex looked incredible, and today was his day. She was here to celebrate him, nothing else. The ceremony continued, and Linda's heart swelled every time Alex stood at attention or received applause. Harris, still watching discreetly, made a mental note to speak to her later. He wanted to confirm what he suspected, but he also wanted to respect her privacy and the joyful moment she was having with her son. For now, he remained at a distance, observing quietly, his mind racing with questions and memories that refused to let go. By the time the cadets were finishing their march across the stage, Harris had made up his mind. He needed to approach her, but not now, not while the ceremony was ongoing. For the moment, he kept watching, fascinated and slightly in awe. Linda had come only to watch her son graduate, but Harris's attention had already marked her for something more significant. A recognition long overdue, a connection that neither of them could have predicted when the day began. As the ceremony went on, Captain Harris remained focused on Linda, his mind still swirling with memories and recognition. He had seen her tattoo, remembered the heroic woman it belonged to, and now the impossible was staring him in the face. She was here, quietly sitting among the crowd, cheering for her son. But while he was absorbed in his thoughts, people around him began to notice that something unusual was happening. Harris's sudden pause, the way he straightened and then froze for a moment, caught the eyes of other officers standing nearby. Some whispered to each other, noticing his unusually intense focus on one person in the audience. "What's gotten into him?" one officer muttered under his breath. "Is he okay?" Another simply shrugged, thinking maybe he had spotted someone he knew. But to Harris, none of this mattered. All he could see was Linda, sitting calmly, clapping for her son with a soft, warm smile. Linda, on the other hand, was completely unaware of the attention she had drawn. She adjusted her camera to get a better shot of Alex, who was now standing proudly at attention with his fellow graduates. She had no idea that a high-ranking officer, someone she had never met, was staring at her as if trying to unravel a mystery. For her, this day was only about her son, about celebrating his hard work, determination, and achievement. Harris's mind raced as he tried to figure out the best way to approach her. He wanted to speak to her, to acknowledge the incredible woman she had been and the hero she had quietly remained. But he also knew that now was not the right time, not during the ceremony with everyone watching. He needed a plan, a way to approach her privately after the event, without causing a scene. Meanwhile, the whispers among other officers grew louder. Some of them had begun to notice the intensity of Harris's gaze. A few curious glances drifted toward Linda, though she still remained oblivious to the stir. Her simple presence, her genuine excitement for her son, was enough to make some people wonder why this officer was so focused on her. One aide quietly nudged another, whispering, "Does he know her?" But the answer remained a mystery to everyone else. As the graduates began their next formation on stage, Linda's eyes sparkled with pride. She laughed softly as Alex gave a perfect salute, feeling the culmination of years of effort, discipline, and support she had provided as a mother. She thought of all the times she had stayed up late helping him with studies, all the encouragement she had given him during difficult times, and the sacrifices she had made to give him a better life. Today, in this moment, all those sacrifices felt worth it. Harris continued to watch her discreetly, his admiration growing with every passing second. There was something about her calmness, her humility, and the love she radiated that contrasted sharply with the courage and determination he remembered from her military days. The woman he had known in the past had been fierce, commanding, and unshakable under pressure. The woman in the crowd now was soft, gentle, and completely devoted to her child. And yet, beneath that gentleness, Harris could sense the same unyielding strength that had made her a hero. As the ceremony progressed, Harris subtly signaled to an aide to stand by, ready to assist if needed. He didn't want to draw attention now, but he needed to be prepared. When the moment was right, he intended to speak to her, to confirm his suspicions and perhaps honor her in a way that had never happened before. The thought of finally acknowledging her bravery gave him a strange mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. Around Linda, the crowd continued to celebrate, entirely focused on the graduates. Parents hugged each other, siblings waved, and friends cheered. Some families noticed her enthusiasm, smiling at her as she captured every moment of Alex's success. None of them realized the drama unfolding quietly nearby, a high-ranking officer observing her with a mix of awe and recognition, trying to connect the dots of a life filled with courage and mystery. As Alex received applause for another perfect maneuver, Linda clapped harder than anyone, her heart swelling with pride. She had no idea that her presence was about to create a ripple effect, that her simple act of cheering for her son was drawing the attention of someone who had once shared her world of courage and challenge. Harris's stare remained fixed, his mind replaying memories, analyzing details, and planning the perfect moment to approach her without causing a scene. Finally, as the ceremony moved closer to its conclusion, Harris felt the anticipation building. He could see the pride on Linda's face, the love she had for her son, and the quiet strength she carried. He realized that this moment was not just about recognizing the past but also about acknowledging the present, a mother's unwavering devotion and a hero's hidden legacy. He resolved to approach her once the ceremony ended, to uncover the truth of her identity, and to show the respect she had always deserved. Linda, still absorbed in cheering for Alex, finally noticed the subtle looks directed at her. She wondered briefly if someone knew her from somewhere, but dismissed it quickly, assuming she was imagining things. She had come only for her son, and nothing else mattered. Yet, little did she know, the crowd was about to witness an unexpected interaction, one that would connect past and present in a way she could never have anticipated. The moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. Alex was about to step forward to receive his diploma. Linda's heart raced as she straightened in her seat, holding her camera tightly. She had imagined this scene countless times, but nothing compared to the reality of seeing her son standing tall among the graduates. His uniform crisp, his posture perfect, and his expression full of pride. Every step he took toward the stage made her chest swell with emotion. Alex had worked tirelessly for this day. She remembered the early mornings when he would wake up before dawn to train, the long evenings spent studying and preparing for exams, and the endless hours dedicated to perfecting every drill and routine. Linda had been there every step of the way, cheering him on, reminding him to keep going when he felt tired or frustrated. Today, all that hard work was visible, shining brightly as he approached the stage. As Alex walked, the crowd erupted in applause, and Linda clapped louder than anyone. She laughed and cried quietly at the same time, overwhelmed by a mixture of pride and relief. She remembered when he had first joined the academy, nervous and unsure of himself. Now he moved with confidence and grace, a true reflection of all the effort, discipline, and guidance he had received. Watching him now, she felt that every sleepless night and sacrifice had been worth it. Captain Harris, still standing nearby, observed the scene with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. He had been following Linda's reactions closely, noticing the love and pride in her eyes. While everyone around him focused on the graduates, Harris could see the quiet strength of a mother who had shaped a hero. And now, as Alex approached the stage, he understood even more why she had been so remarkable. Not only had she raised a son capable of achieving this milestone, but she had done so while carrying her own hidden legacy of courage and strength. As Alex stepped onto the stage, the commanding officer handed him his diploma. The applause grew louder, filling the entire hall with noise and excitement. Linda's hands shook slightly as she raised her camera to capture the moment. She wanted to freeze this memory forever, to hold on to the exact expression of pride and happiness on her son's face. She noticed the smiles of other parents and the proud glances exchanged among friends and family. It was a perfect moment of celebration, full of joy and accomplishment. Alex paused briefly to salute, a gesture he had practiced countless times. Linda felt a lump in her throat as she realized just how much he had grown. Not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. He had transformed into a young man capable of handling responsibility, discipline, and the challenges of life. She had always believed in him, but seeing him now in front of everyone made her believe even more. Harris continued observing Linda, his mind reflecting on the layers of her life. He noticed how every small gesture, the way she clapped, the way she smiled, the way her eyes followed her son, revealed the depth of her character. She was more than a mother celebrating her child. She was someone who had faced life's challenges head-on, a woman who had shown courage when it mattered most, and someone who had taught her son the values that brought him to this very moment. While the ceremony proceeded, Linda felt a sudden wave of nostalgia. She remembered Alex as a small boy, struggling to ride his bike, learning to read, and overcoming every little challenge with her support. She remembered the nights she stayed awake when he was sick, comforting him, holding his hand, and promising him that he could achieve anything if he tried hard enough. Every memory added to the pride she felt now. She had helped shape this moment, and it was the happiest day of her life. As Alex received his diploma and posed for photographs, Linda continued cheering, her voice catching occasionally with emotion. Around her, the crowd erupted with applause, some wiping tears from their eyes. She felt completely immersed in the celebration, completely focused on her son. For her, the rest of the world had faded. She was entirely present, enjoying every second of Alex's achievement, soaking in the pride, the love, and the joy of the day. Harris, still watching, began to plan carefully. He knew he had to approach Linda after the ceremony, but he also understood that this moment belonged to her and her son. He could wait a few minutes, letting the celebration continue naturally. Yet, he remained intrigued, more convinced than ever that the woman sitting there, completely devoted to her son, was the same remarkable soldier from his past. The moment felt electric, full of anticipation, admiration, and respect, yet still wrapped in the quiet joy of a graduation ceremony. As Alex turned to leave the stage, his eyes met his mother's, and a huge smile spread across his face. Linda waved and clapped, tears forming in the corners of her eyes. It was a small connection just between mother and son, but it spoke volumes. The pride, love, and joy of the moment were shared silently, intimately, and completely. Linda knew this was one of the happiest days of her life, a culmination of years of effort, love, and dedication. And while everyone around her cheered, and cameras flashed to capture the moment, Captain Harris continued observing quietly. He knew that after this ceremony ended, he would finally have the chance to speak to Linda, to uncover the story behind the tattoo, and to honor the woman who had quietly shaped not only her son's life, but also the legacy of courage and strength he had once admired so deeply. As the graduation ceremony began to wind down, Captain Harris knew it was finally the right moment. The cadets had returned to their seats, and the families were starting to gather their belongings. Cameras clicked, phones rang with notifications, and children ran around excitedly, chattering about the day's events. Amid the joyful chaos, Harris spotted Linda gathering her things, still smiling, still full of pride for her son. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his own excitement and nerves. He walked toward her slowly, careful not to startle her. His steps were measured and confident, the kind of steps he had learned to take in tense situations during his military service. His mind raced with questions and anticipation. What would he say first? How would she react? Could it really be her, the same soldier he had admired and respected so deeply years ago? The tattoo had already told him part of the story, but he needed confirmation. Linda, still immersed in the joy of the day, barely noticed the captain approaching. She had been focused entirely on Alex, making sure she captured the perfect photograph of him with his diploma. She was unaware that someone had been observing her closely for the past hour, someone whose curiosity and admiration ran deep. As Harris reached her side, he straightened, gave a polite but firm nod, and said, "Excuse me, ma'am. I hope I'm not intruding, but I couldn't help noticing your tattoo." Linda blinked, slightly startled, turning toward him. She wasn't expecting to be addressed by a high-ranking officer she had never met. "Oh," she replied softly, a little unsure how to respond. "Yes, it's just a tattoo." Harris studied her carefully. "I don't mean to alarm you," he continued gently, "but I've seen that design before. It's not common. Did you serve in the military?" Linda's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected anyone to recognize her in this way, especially not here, and certainly not during her son's graduation. For a moment, she hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "Yes," she finally said, her voice calm but tinged with a hint of pride. "I did many years ago, but I left active duty to focus on my family." She glanced at Alex, who was now talking excitedly with friends nearby, completely unaware of the attention his mother was receiving. "That's why I'm just here today, to celebrate my son." Harris nodded slowly, absorbing her words. He could see the sincerity in her eyes, the quiet strength and humility that had always set her apart. "I suspected as much," he said. "I thought it might be you. I knew a remarkable soldier once, a woman whose bravery and leadership left a mark on everyone who served with her. And now, seeing you here, I realize it's true. It really is you." Linda felt a mix of surprise, pride, and a little embarrassment. She hadn't expected recognition, especially from someone she had never met personally during her service. And yet, hearing Harris acknowledge her past bravery made her heart swell. For so many years, she had left that part of her life behind, keeping it private as she focused on raising Alex. Hearing someone else recognize it, respect it, and remember it in such detail was unexpectedly emotional. I don't know what to say," Linda admitted softly, smiling. "I've mostly kept that part of my life to myself. I wanted to focus on Alex and giving him a normal life. That's why I'm just a mom today, nothing more." Harris smiled warmly. "Being a mom doesn't diminish what you've done," he replied. "In fact, it adds another layer to it. You've continued to show courage and strength in ways that matter just as much, if not more." He paused, then gestured slightly toward her tattoo. "I wanted to meet you to acknowledge what you've done and who you are. That tattoo, it's a symbol of more than just the past. It represents a life of bravery, sacrifice, and integrity. And seeing it here today reminds me that heroes aren't always on the battlefield. They're also shaping lives quietly, in ways that truly matter." Linda felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had never imagined that her past, hidden for so long, would be recognized so openly and respectfully. She glanced at Alex again, thinking of how much he had grown under her guidance and love. The moment felt surreal. She had come just to watch her son graduate, and now, she was being honored quietly by someone who had understood the full scope of her life. Harris extended his hand politely, a gesture of both respect and acknowledgement. Linda hesitated briefly, then shook it firmly, feeling a sense of validation she hadn't felt in years. It was a silent acknowledgement of her past, her sacrifices, and the life she had built, both on the battlefield and at home. They stood there for a moment, sharing a quiet understanding. Around them, the graduation crowd was lively, full of excitement and chatter. But in that small space, a bridge had formed between past and present, between hidden heroism and quiet recognition. Harris knew that this was just the beginning of a conversation that could finally honor her contributions fully, and Linda felt a sense of closure she hadn't realized she needed. As the crowd began to disperse, Harris gave a final nod. "It's an honor to meet you," he said sincerely. "Thank you for your service in every way." Linda smiled, feeling a warmth that was more than pride. It was recognition, respect, and connection. "Thank you," she replied. "That means a lot." In that moment, Linda realized that today wasn't just about Alex's achievement. It was also about her own journey, the quiet battles she had fought, and the courage she had carried all these years. She had come to watch her son graduate, and instead, she had been reminded of her own strength, a strength that had not gone unnoticed. Linda stood there, still holding Captain Harris's handshake, feeling a mix of surprise, pride, and a little nervousness. She had never expected anyone to recognize her, let alone someone who had known of her accomplishments during her military service. It had been a part of her life she had quietly set aside, a chapter she had closed after deciding to focus on raising her son. And yet, here it was, brought vividly back into her life by a man who understood exactly what it represented. Harris studied her closely, noticing the subtle way her hands trembled ever so slightly and the way her eyes flickered with emotion. "I need to ask," he said gently. "Are you the soldier I knew years ago? The one whose reputation was, well, unforgettable?" Linda took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years of secrecy lift slightly in that moment. She nodded slowly. "Yes," she said softly, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "That was me." She paused, looking down for a moment, then back up at him. "I left the military to focus on Alex. I wanted him to have a normal life and I wanted to be there for him. That's why I stopped talking about the past. It became someone else's story, and I needed to focus on being a mom." Harris nodded, understanding perfectly. "I get it," he said, his voice calm but sincere. "I remember the missions you led, the challenges you faced, and the way you never backed down. You were extraordinary. And to see you here, quietly supporting your son, reminds me that being a hero isn't just about the battlefield. It's about the impact you make on others, the lives you shape quietly, without recognition." Linda felt a lump in her throat. She had sacrificed so much over the years. Long deployments, dangerous missions, endless stress. But she had never thought anyone would remember. She had believed her contributions would fade into history, known only to those who had served beside her. Hearing Harris acknowledge her, not just as a mother but as a soldier, filled her with an unexpected pride. "You really remember all that?" she asked, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "Even after all these years?" Harris smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "Of course, some people leave a mark that doesn't fade, no matter how much time passes. And you left a mark on everyone who served with you. I never forgot you. I never could." Linda looked at him, feeling a mixture of relief and humility. She had always known she had done her best, but hearing someone else put it into words, someone who truly understood the sacrifices and courage it had taken, was more validating than she had expected. "I didn't do it for recognition," she said, shaking her head slightly. "I did it because it was my duty, and because I wanted to protect the people around me. But it's nice to know someone remembers." Harris nodded, understanding that this recognition meant more than words could convey. "I'm glad I do," he said, "and I'm glad I finally had the chance to tell you." He paused, studying her for a moment, noticing the quiet strength that still radiated from her. "You were remarkable then, and you're remarkable now. The way you raised your son, the way you support him, it's another kind of bravery, one that doesn't get medals but matters just as much." Linda's eyes welled up with tears. She looked at Alex, who was still chatting happily with friends nearby, completely unaware of the quiet recognition his mother was receiving. All the sacrifices she had made, the late nights, the difficult choices, the years of keeping her past hidden, suddenly felt seen. For the first time in years, she felt truly acknowledged, not just as a parent, but as the person she had been and still was inside. I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Thank you for remembering me, for seeing me. I never thought anyone outside the military would know." Harris smiled warmly. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that your courage, your dedication, and your strength have not been forgotten. And I think Alex already knows it in some way. He's the kind of young man you raised because of who you are. Your legacy lives on in him." Linda took a moment to breathe, absorbing his words. For so long, she had carried the memories of her service quietly, tucked away, feeling that they were hers alone. Now, hearing Harris articulate them aloud, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She realized that her story was not forgotten, that her bravery, her sacrifices, and her strength were still honored, even if quietly, even if only by a few who truly understood. "You've no idea how much that means to me," she said finally, her voice strong but emotional. "I came here just to celebrate Alex, but I think today I've been reminded of myself too, and that feels amazing." Harris nodded, smiling. "You've earned it, and it's well-deserved." They stood there for a few more moments, silently sharing a connection forged by respect, recognition, and shared history. The graduation crowd moved around them, celebrating, taking photos, and congratulating one another. But in that small space, Linda and Harris shared a moment that transcended the day's events. A moment of understanding, honor, and acknowledgement. Linda finally smiled fully, feeling a sense of closure and pride she hadn't known she needed. Today was Alex's day, yes, but it had also become a day of recognition for her. She had come only to watch her son graduate, but she left feeling seen, respected, and honored. Not just as a mother, but as a hero whose bravery had quietly shaped so many lives. The graduation ceremony was winding down, and families began gathering their belongings, chatting excitedly, and taking one last look at the graduates. Linda felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Alex had completed a major milestone, and she had witnessed it all, her heart full of pride. But beyond that, her encounter with Captain Harris lingered in her mind. For the first time in years, she felt truly seen. Not just as a mother, but as the person she had been, the woman who had faced danger, made sacrifices, and carried courage silently through her life. As she walked slowly toward Alex, who was now laughing and joking with his friends, she realized that something had shifted inside her. The encounter with Harris had reminded her that her past bravery, the life she had once led, was still meaningful. It wasn't forgotten, and it wasn't something to be hidden anymore. For so long, she had focused only on her son, on giving him a normal life, and while that had been important, today she realized that acknowledging herself was just as vital. Alex ran up to her, his face glowing with happiness. "Mom, did you see me? I did it. Can you believe it?" His excitement was infectious, and Linda laughed, tears springing to her eyes. She pulled him into a tight hug. "I saw every single thing, Alex. I'm so proud of you," she said, her voice shaking slightly. In that moment, everything she had done as a mother, the guidance, the support, the sacrifices, felt complete. She had given him the foundation to succeed, and now he had achieved something incredible. Harris lingered nearby, watching quietly as mother and son shared their private moment. He knew it was important for Linda to have this time, to celebrate Alex without interruptions. But he also felt a deep sense of admiration, realizing that her strength extended far beyond the battlefield. The courage, discipline, and determination she had once shown in service now shone in the way she had raised her son. It was another kind of heroism, one that didn't make headlines but mattered deeply. As Alex continued to chat animatedly about the ceremony, Linda noticed how much he had grown. Not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. He had become a young man capable of handling responsibility, working hard, and achieving goals with dedication. And she realized that much of that came from the lessons she had quietly instilled in him: perseverance, courage, and integrity. Her past life as a soldier had shaped her in ways that now reflected in her son's achievements. Harris finally approached Linda again. This time it was less formal, more personal. "I just wanted to say again," he said, "that it's an honor to meet you and to see the person you've become. You've left a mark, not just in your service, but in the life of your son. That's a kind of legacy that lasts forever." Linda smiled warmly, feeling a sense of closure she hadn't realized she needed. "Thank you," she replied. "I never did this for recognition, but it's comforting to know that my efforts, both past and present, are appreciated." She glanced at Alex, then back at Harris. "Raising him, supporting him, it's my proudest accomplishment. And today, seeing him succeed, I feel like all my sacrifices were worth it." Harris nodded, understanding perfectly. "It's clear just by looking at him. You've raised someone remarkable, and it's a reflection of the person you are." His gaze softened. "You've shown that heroism isn't just in battles or medals. It's in everyday choices, in love, courage, and dedication. That's what makes you truly extraordinary." Linda felt tears welling up again, but this time they were tears of joy, pride, and recognition. She looked at Alex, who was still beaming, completely unaware of the acknowledgement his mother was receiving. She realized that today had become more than just his graduation. It had become a day that honored both of them. Alex's success and her past courage were intertwined in a way that she hadn't expected, and it gave her a deep sense of fulfillment. As the crowd slowly dispersed, families hugging and taking final photos, Linda and Alex walked together toward their car. Harris watched them for a moment, then nodded silently, knowing he had witnessed something rare and meaningful. A mother's quiet bravery, once hidden, had been acknowledged. A son's hard-earned achievement had been celebrated, and a connection between past and present had been made. Linda felt a sense of peace as she got into the car. She had come simply to watch her son graduate, but the day had given her something more: validation, recognition, and closure. She had been reminded of her own strength, her courage, and the sacrifices she had made. For so long, those parts of her life had remained in the shadows, known only to a few. Today she had been seen. Today, she had been honored in the quietest, most meaningful way. Alex sat beside her, still talking excitedly, holding his diploma proudly. Linda smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of his journey. But she also knew that her own journey, her life of bravery, love, and sacrifice, would always be part of him. And that legacy, both hers and his, was something no one could take away. As the car pulled away from the military academy, Linda glanced back at the crowd, feeling a wave of gratitude and pride. She had come just to watch her son, but she was leaving with so much more. The quiet acknowledgement of her past, the pride of her son's present, and the knowledge that her strength and courage had not gone unnoticed. It was a day she would never forget. A day of graduation, recognition, and the perfect reminder that heroes exist not only on the battlefield but in everyday life, quietly shaping the world around them.